Alright, so let's bring our sword in here now that we've played around in ZBrush. I'm going to show you a bunch of new stuff in here as well, but I want to get you used to working in ZBrush after sculpting last class. So what we're going to do to import this in, we've exported it before, our low poly, we're taking our low poly, and we've exported it before to go into Substance and then do some painting on it because it's all unwrapped and everything. But what we're going to do this time is import it here as the low poly so we can add resolution to it instead of doing it the high poly inside of Max. So I'm going to open up this right here. It's called the Z plugins. ZBrush has a lot of plugins, and a lot of the stuff they do is just plugin based, so other people have built something that works well and they just use it. If you click this little button right here, this little looks like a hanging button. If you click on it just once, it'll pop it over here. If you don't, and if you click on it over here, it'll close it off again, leaving this open. But another thing you can do is you can click on it and drag, and you can put it wherever you want. So in that case, I'll just still put it over here. This was defaulted open, but that's where we're going to actually go. So we're going to go to FBX Import Export, and we're going to come in here and go to drop down that says FBX Import Export. We're going to say Import. We're going to say wherever you put your sword, in my case it's right here, I'm going to say low sword and just import. But let me show you something before I did that, just to be clear. Let me clear this out real quick here. Before we can do anything, we have to make a Polymesh 3D. So we're going to grab this and we're going to put it as a cylinder on here. If you have nothing on your screen, that just means you have to drag out a cylinder and push T. So, and this is a new thing. Okay. Let's say N. So if it looks like this, you're just going to drag a cylinder out, push T to get into edit mode, and now you have it rolling around. Then you have to make it a Polymesh 3D. Those are the 3 steps. Then you jump in here and you say import, not export. Oops. Import. Pick your sword, and it'll replace this layer right here, this subtool, with your sword like that. If your subtool menu isn't open, you just have to click on the word and it'll show up right there. And now I've got my sword in here. Now there's a few things we can do I've talked about. Sometimes it works great if you can just do a turn off your division smoothing and just divide a few times. And then turn it back on and divide some more. But in this case, it kind of gives me this blocky stuff, so we're not going to do it that way. So I'm going to back out of this and we're going to do something else. I told you previous class that it's important that you start to pay attention to the polygroups in here. And the way you can look at polygroups is you can click on this button up here, which I know is in a different spot in your user interface, but you can also just, most of us just push Shift F, and if you look, it says it right there, Shift F. And when I brought this in, it had one polygroup. I can actually set this up to have more than one polygroup inside of Max if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to start with it like it's just one simple polygroup. So what I want to do is redefine the polygroups on here. And the way to do that, the easiest way, is to come down to this. If I close this menu, it'll open up all these other ones. Come down to polygroups and click. And if I click on polygroup, I get this whole list of things I can do. I can try auto groups and see what it does. And auto groups say, no, it's all one group. So there you go. I can say auto group or UV groups, which is a really good way to do it. And I guess I don't know if I must not have this unwrapped, funny enough. Oh wait, auto groups with UV. There we go. So this may be the best way to go. Okay, but sometimes it gives us weird stuff like this. Apparently I have these pieces separated, and that may not be what we want. What I really want is to have every 90-degree angle as, or 45-degree angle as a separate polygroup, and that's it. So what I'm going to do is come over to normals. That's another way of saying the direction the face is facing. And I'm going to say by any angle, it's defaulted to 45, and I'm just going to click on group by normals. Now for my sword, you may get lucky and it may do exactly what you want for the whole thing. And you can even change this down, and if I change it down to like 30 and try again, to try and get this separate piece, I'm still not getting it, but now it's separating out this edge here from itself, and I don't really want that. It also did give me this edge up here. If I come back and look at this, it's broken out this edge, but it's not completely what I want. I might have some sharper angles than I expected. So I'm going to come back to here and say 45, and then say group by normals. Okay, so I've got it pretty good, but it's not quite where we want it to be. So now we're going to learn a new tool. The tool, it's really not even a tool, it's a way to modify what you're looking at. And what you do is you push, remember I told you you could push control and mask things? Well, we're going to even not use mask at this point. We're going to use hide and unhide things. So you can see that the visibility right here is the same thing. This is a little bit harder. We're going to do it with shortcuts, but now that we have polygroups like this, we can do it pretty fast. So, for example, if I come to this blade, and the shortcut for doing hiding stuff by yourself is Control and Shift. And when I do that, I get a box of green, right? And whatever I select, it just hides everything but what I've selected. But another trick about that is if I push Control and Shift and click on just one polygroup, it hides everything but that polygroup. So that I did that little polygroup by 45-degree angle, it broke it out a little bit for me, but it's not quite all the way there. So what I want is this to be a different polygroup, this edge right here, and this edge to be a polygroup, and this edge to be a polygroup, and that edge to be a polygroup. So how's the best way to do that? Well, not only can I push Shift Control, but I can also push Alt at the same time. And when I push Shift Control Alt, it shows me a red box. Now if I roll over this, it now hides everything below, everything I've selected. The one trick I want to point out here is that with deselect, it's everything that the red box touches. With adding or with just hiding certain things, it's only what the green box fully engulfs. So like this edge, this whole polygroup right here will disappear because it's not fully engulfed by my box. They just did it opposite for that tool. Okay, so I just want these two edges to be different right now. So first let's just do this. I'll go Control, Alt, Shift, and drag, and I get rid of those. And then I can do something like Control, Shift, Alt again, and just starting here, drag up to there, and it'll get rid of the interior. So I'm pretty good there. Probably could have just taken this one too. Now, cool thing about polygroups is that, and hiding things, is that when you only have one thing on the screen, and this works for also for masking, but for just now, when you have one thing on the screen, if you push Control W, that's the cool tool. That's the tool you got to memorize here, Control W. If you push Control W, it auto groups just that one. How do I know it did that one? Because if I come back out, you'll see it's just that edge. So that worked splendidly. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to go click on this again. So I've just this polygroup. You can see it's just that polygroup again. And then I'm going to go, I'll do that same kind of method here. I'll take this off. And if you're doing this by yourself, it's much faster. If you're not trying to walk through it here, and I just do this, and you get super fast at it, and now I can do Control W, come back out, and I've got those edges separate. And so I'm going to come back in here, click on this, and you'll see I get just that sword part. Then I'll Alt click here, and then I'll Alt Control Shift here, and I've got just those, and then I'll do that. And then I'll click outside of the object. So when you want to reveal something, everything else that's hidden, again, it's like I said, it's the opposite of masking. Control Shift and then click off the object, and it'll unhide everything that is hidden. I'm going to turn my sword over, click again, and then I'm going to do Control Shift Alt click, and then I'm going to say Control Shift Alt click, and then I'm going to Control W. And I don't like the way that looks. That's so close to the other colors, and ZBrush does that. I'm going to do it again and again until I find one I like. Control W, Control W. Okay. That looks good. And I'll click off of it, and then I'll do the same thing again, just hiding everything but this one polygroup. And then I will Control Shift Alt and take this one off, Control Shift Alt and take this one off, and then Control W until I find something I like. Okay, so now I've got two on the bottom, so I got to get these side ones here. So I'll Control Shift Alt that, and then just from the center, Control Shift Alt, because I don't mind if these two, since they're not touching, are the same polygroup. Control W, I'm going to get something a little bit, oh, there we go. And then I'll Control Shift Alt, and there I am. So I've got that set up. Another one that I can see that's a problem is this in here. So this one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do first, you'll see that's a big selection, so we're going to fix that problem. We're going to Control Shift and click on this green, and see all that green. I don't mind that these are all connected, but I don't want these pieces down here connected. So I'm going to Control Alt Shift and click here, and then Control W to change the color of that one, and get out of there. Do the same thing, click on this one with Control Shift, and then I'm going to Control Alt Shift this, I think. Actually, I'm going to go down to here. And then I'm going to Control W, and then I'm going to Control Alt there. And you can see, though it looked like these two were connected, they really weren't. I knew that. So now I've got everything. Let me make sure, yeah. I've got everything, its own polygroup that are touching a 45 or 90 degree angle, okay? And it didn't take that long. If I was just taught, it takes a little practice to get doing it fast, but even slow, it wouldn't have taken that long. So now I've got that all set up. What is the point of this? This is kind of like smoothing or putting border. It's like using the smoothing groups inside of Max to do your turbo smooth, okay? But this one, we're really controlling how it works. But if I bring this in here and I do this by myself, it's going to take 5-10 minutes to get this to this point if you follow this methodology. And sometimes it'll take less because your polygroups by 45 degree normal is just going to pop perfectly. Okay, so next thing I need to do is come in here real quick. I'm going to open up the crease window, and what happens is I see a bunch of options, and I'm not even going to have you stress about what options you have. The only one we care about right now is this crease PG, which is crease polygroup borders, but it's going to make these two dotted lines. It's going to basically build support edges on here, and I can say how strong I want the crease to be and stuff like that, but we are going to dance with that right now. So we're just going to say crease PG, and then it puts those edges right there. So all that to do what? Well, now if I go ahead and hide the polygroups, and if you didn't catch that, it's Shift F to unhide and hide. Again, it's just clicking this button. If I start smoothing now, even with the, or dividing now, even with the smooth on, like this, Control D, and you can see it went to 2, Control D, it went to 3, Control D, it went to 4, Control D, it went to 5. So it's the same amount of subdivisions we had in Max. It does have a little bit different of poly count, I think, if I remember right. Anyway, and it does these little curl things right here that we may or may not like, but everything else is perfect. Oh, it looks like I missed one. So how do I fix that? Back out real quick. I need to do my spike. So how do I do my spike? I do the same exact thing. I hide everything but the spike. I'm here. Actually, I'll show you a different way to do it. So if you want, you can use the masking tool too. So F to get out of here. Mask is Control and drag and you get a box. Or Control and paint and you get that. Well, in this case, I'm going to Control, and it has to be, everything has to be selected. It has to cross the whole polygon for it to be counted as masked. So I'm going to turn on this flat color right here so you can see it better. But I'm going to come and grab this. Oops, that's wrong now. I'm so used to doing it that way. I'm just going to go Control and drag and go up above the edge here to that. Now it looks like it's got a little bit of a sub selection here, but it doesn't. It's just ZBrush. I have no idea why it does that. I'm sure somebody brilliant will tell me someday. When I divide it, maybe it makes a softer, smoother transition. But whatever I have masked, you know that Control W button that we have? It works the same for masking too. So if I push Control W again, and then of course it didn't show up very well, so I'll do a different color. There. So, and again, I'm just undoing. Oh, I don't like that color. Redoing. Oh, that's better. I don't like that color. Undoing, redoing. So I can do it as many times as I want, and it'll just give me a different color. That's all it's doing. Okay. So now I've got my sword all broken up the way it's supposed to be. I'm going to turn off the wireframe, and now I can divide it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I got the same kind of thing that we had before. All right. So the next thing I'm going to show you is, and I think, but anyway, so now I've got everything more or less, yeah, like the other one. Now, what I'm going to show you next is Dynamesh.